Okay, so this is module 4. So let's get started. In this module, we looked at how engineering changed during the early 20th century. This was a period when technology, corporations, labor, and politics were all transforming at the same time. Then we have, in our readings of Module 4, we start talking about engineers in bureaucracy. Engineering was shifted from individual inventors to engineers working inside of these large corporations. Ray and Volti describe how big organizations needed standardized processes. They also needed research labs, management structures, which helped pull engineers into these bureaucracies. What we also do see is engineers increasingly moved into management. This reflected a belief that technical expertise produced better and more rational decision making. Ray and Volti also note this in the transition that created tension between any kind of technical judgment and corporate priorities. Um, Engineers and labor. We do read about Taylor's principles of scientific management and how this redefined the relationship between engineers and laborers. Engineers planned and timed every step of their work. They also followed instructions down to the T. This increased efficiency, but what it did is it reduced worker autonomy. Um, the technocracy the technocracy movement had leaders like Howard Scott, um, and how they argued against engineers, how they should run a society because they could manage resources rationally against engineers. This was a political response to the chaos of the Great Depression that was happening at that time. As the engineers gained more influence in corporations and society, there were they formed these formal ethical codes to keep this profession more accountable, like the 1912 AIEE Code of Conduct, which emphasized honesty, loyalty, public welfare, and responsibility. Overall, engineering split into different pathways. There was ways of hands-on industrial work, laboratory research, corporate management, and even political or these social reform movements like technocracy. This module showed us how diverse the profession really did become. In conclusion, each reading that we have within Module 4 highlights a different angle on engineering's evolution. Together, they show how the profession reshaped labor, corporations, policies, politics, and ethics. And this just really showed how engineers became a central figure in modern society.
Welcome to Module 5. And in this module, we'll talk about the Cold War and the expansion of military technologies, as well as the key projects and some key figures, and also some ethical critics. So, the World War II and dramatically expanded what engineering looked like. And projects like radar, advanced aircraft, and atomic bombs required huge teams and rapid innovation. And therefore, systems were created where universities, industries, government all work together to basically and develop some defenses. All right, and so the Cold War, during the Cold War, engineering became even more tied to defense, and the arms race for space, race for demanding breakthroughs in computing, aerospace, and nuclear technology. So this period shaped many systems that we rely on today, and some of the key projects were like the Sage project as well as the ARPANET project, and these were important during the Cold War, and the Sage project introduced a real-time interactive computer, and the ARPANET became the foundation of modern internet that we use today. Some of the key figures in this module were Jay Foster, that led the SAGE project and invented the magnetic core memory, and also JCR Lickiter. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that name, and shaped early ideas of interactive computing and influence of the ARPANET. And not everyone was a fan of all the engineering. Some engineers raised concerns about how their work were being used, and notably Norbert Weiner and refused military funding because he feared that his research could be misused. Also, Bob Aldridge and left industry Lockheed Martin after questioning some of the ethics of the nuclear missile work. And so the Cold War created a powerful system linking government, industry, and universities. This structure enabled massive technologies and achievements, but also raised questions about academic independence and the direction of scientific research. And the Cold War engineering advanced computing, communication, aerospace, but also contributed to nuclear risk and global tensions. And so understanding this history helps engineer think carefully today about and the impact of their work. And that's it.
Okay, in this presentation, we're going to correct two issues, the issue of writing too much on the slides and then also the sound quality. First, we looked at the ARPANET that became the internet and how it was developed by the US Department of Defense, or ARPA, in 1960, and the function of it was to help transfer packets from one computer to another computer on different research locations. And then next, we looked at the secret history of women in coding and how a case was Mary Allen, who in 1950 was advised by her geography teacher and also her mentors to do computer programming and to abandon her dream of becoming a litigator, even though she later on did it. But this was simply because of how other jobs were being prioritized by men and they pushed out women and discriminated against them. And then they left coding, which was seen as kind of like a lesser job, and we didn't pay much at the time for the women. And even the lady, we also looked at the lady Ada Lovelace, who became the first computer programmer, who died young at the age of 36, but also left a stepping stone for programmers worldwide. And then next, we also looked at a child prediction model that fails, the child abuse prediction model that fails poor family in Philadelphia, and how the alleged family screening tool also discriminated against the poor because it had three issues. An issue of definition, which just by you being poor, you might be mistaken for abusing your kid or neglecting your kid. And also and also the model oversampling of the poor and also false positives and negatives, where kids who were not necessarily being neglected or maltreated were given false positives, and those who actually needed to be taken because they were being maltreated were given false negatives. And the tool worked with a score line of 1 to 20, with between 18 and above, that triggered the system to investigate. I think, yeah, that's it. That's the end.